Look at the fruit bowl on your counter right now. Maybe there is an apple, a peach, or a bag of raw almonds sitting within arm's reach. You grab one without thinking because you trust it. But for 300,000 years, that same object was a potential suicide note, wrapped in sweet skin. Imagine biting into a crisp red apple, crunching down hard on the tiny black seeds at the core, and swallowing them whole. In that single bite, you just ingested enough cyanide to shut down your brain stem. Your ancestors lived with this threat every single day. There were no warning labels. There was no poison control hotline. Just a world where the difference between dinner and death was often a matter of chewing technique. So, how did early humans learn what was safe to eat without dying in the process? The answer lies in a brutal evolutionary filter that turned our ancestors into accidental chemists. We start with the evidence found in ancient dental records, which show that our teeth were not just for eating, they were survival tools designed to crush danger before it could enter your body. Let us begin with the most familiar culprit, the apple. To you, it is a snack. To an early human, the pit was a landmine. Apple seeds contain amygdalin, a compound that breaks down into hydrogen cyanide when digested. Cyanide is terrifyingly efficient. It binds to the enzymes in your cells that allow them to use oxygen. Essentially, it suffocates you from the inside out while you are still breathing. But here is the twist. You cannot die from eating an apple unless you chew the seeds. The hard shell protects the poison. This means early humans had to evolve a specific behavior. They had to learn to spit. Archaeological sites reveal piles of discarded pits that look like modern cigarette butts. These are not trash. They are proof of survival. Every pit on the ground represents a person who successfully navigated the trap. But apples were just the beginning. The real danger came from nuts that looked delicious but carried a heavier dose of death. Consider the almond. Today you buy sweet almonds at the grocery store, but wild almonds are completely different. They contain up to 100 times more cyanide than their domesticated cousins. If your ancestor found a wild almond tree in the Paleolithic era, every nut was a gamble. Eating just 2 or 3 raw bitter almonds could be fatal for an adult. The bitterness was the warning label, but it was easy to ignore when hunger was driving you mad. So how did we get from deadly nuts to the safe snacks we eat today? It was not magic. It was selective pressure over thousands of years. Early farmers noticed that some almond trees produced slightly less bitter nuts. They saved those seeds. They planted them. Over generations, they bred out the poison. This process took millennia. For most of human history, an almond was a luxury item reserved for the wealthy or the desperate, because preparing it required soaking, boiling, and roasting to leach out the cyanide. If you missed a step, you paid with your life. Now let us move from trees to legumes. Raw kidney beans. You might think of them as harmless pantry staples, but raw kidney beans contain phytohemagglutinin, a toxin that attacks the lining of your digestive tract. This is not slow-acting. Ingestion can cause violent vomiting and diarrhea within 1 hour. In a prehistoric context, dehydration and electrolyte imbalance meant death. You cannot hunt or gather when you are incapacitated by food poisoning. The solution was heat. But not just any heat. You have to cook them at temperatures above 212 degrees Fahrenheit for at least 10 minutes. Slow cookers often fail to reach this threshold, which is why modern food safety warnings exist. For ancient humans, this meant fire was non-negotiable. Without controlled flame, these beans were inedible. This chemical barrier likely drove the adoption of cooking technology earlier than we previously thought. Fire did not just make food taste better. It unlocked calories that were otherwise locked behind a wall of poison. Then there is the castor bean plant. This is where the stakes shift from unpleasant to lethal. Castor beans produce ricin, one of the most deadly natural toxins known to science. A single seed contains enough ricin to kill an adult human. Ricin works by shutting down protein synthesis in your cells. Your body literally stops building itself and begins to collapse organ by organ. There is no antidote. Unlike cyanide, which acts quickly, ricin has a delayed onset. You might feel fine for days after ingestion before the symptoms hit. This makes it incredibly dangerous for hunter-gatherers who do not understand cause and effect. If you eat a seed today and die next week, your tribe does not know the seed killed you. They might blame a curse or bad luck. This disconnect between action and consequence makes toxic plants like castor oil bean some of the most persistent killers in human history. Evidence suggests that early humans used processed castor beans for medicine or oil, but the margin for error was razor thin. One crushed seed during preparation could contaminate an entire batch. Finally, we have the cherry and apricot pits, which are cousins to the apple seed. These stones contain even higher concentrations of cyanide than apples. A child can be killed by chewing just a few apricot kernels. For early humans, fruit was a seasonal gold mine, but it came with a hidden tax. The flesh was safe, the stone was not. This created a unique evolutionary pressure on human digestion and behavior. We developed the ability to distinguish textures and tastes. With extreme precision, we learned to separate the sweet from the bitter. But more importantly, we learned to process food before eating it. Roasting, grinding, and soaking were not just culinary preferences, they were chemical defenses. When you roast a seed, you break down the toxic compounds. When you soak it, you leach them into the water. These techniques spread across continents because they worked. They allowed humans to expand their diet into dangerous new territories. So what does this mean for us today? It means that every time you eat an almond or bite an apple, you are participating in a ritual that kept our ancestors alive. We have bred the poison out of many of these foods, but the genetic memory remains. Your body still reacts to bitterness with caution. Your brain still associates certain textures with danger. The seeds that could kill you are now safe because your great-grandparents spent thousands of years dying to make them so. This is not just history, it is biology written in your DNA. The next time you see a fruit pit or a raw bean, remember that it was once a weapon. And we disarmed it with fire, patience, and trial and error. Now that you know how close we came to extinction over a snack, look at the food on your plate again. What other everyday items are hiding ancient secrets?